And welcome to the Secret Circle presents Pop Culture Investigations, where no case is too big or small to handle, and where there's no escape from the ever-watching critical eye. I'm your host, Dr. Luke Deckard, and with me today, I have Neil Vagg from Get Your Comic On. How's it going, Neil?
I'm good. How are you? It's been a while.
I'm good. What'd you say?
It's been a while.
It has been a while. I did, I made some changes to my podcasting stuff, and live took a back seat, and I did do more pre-recorded stuff, which is a lot of fun. But you can't really. I can't not talk about pop culture stuff.
No.
It's great to talk about it with writer perspectives or actors and things like that. But sometimes I just want to sit down and chat about a show that I've just watched, and it's too hot in my loft for this scarf, so I'm gonna take it off. But I'm Doctor Who. There we go, on the floor. So we are here today to talk about Doctor Who, the 60th anniversary, the first special, the Star Beast, the big return of David Tennant and Catherine Tate as the Doctor and Donna Noble. What to say initially about the Star Beast? The Star Beast, which aired today, was written by Russell T Davies, and the synopsis is that the Doctor's caught in a fight to the death as a spaceship crash lands in London, but as the battle wreaks havoc, destiny is converging on the Doctor's old friend, Donna. What in the world does that mean? What does that mean? Initial impressions, Neil. What's your initial impressions, and then we'll kind of go like beat by beat through the episode and go from there.
So I would say this is probably the most excited I have been about Doctor Who in a very long time.
Yeah,
a very long time. I'm not going to say it was a perfect episode. There were some clunky elements, but overall, I think production was slick. It was exciting to have it back. It looked great. It sounded great. It was pretty well written. I think this is Doctor Who is back.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree. I walked away. There was a lot of feeling of 2005-ness to it, which makes sense. It's Russell T Davies. He's back running the show. He has his very unique writing style, and his kind of unique voice. And you could really feel that this was a Russell T Davies episode. You could, but the but is that it also really felt like it was, like I said, like from that 2005-2008 era. And I don't know if that's a positive or a negative yet. I'm on the fence. There was a part of me that sort of felt like we were watching a legacy sequel like Star Trek Picard Series 3.
Yep.
Even though Doctor Who hasn't really ended, but it kind of had that feeling. But whereas Picard Series 3 didn't really try and imitate TNG style episodes, this felt very much like a classic Doctor Who episode. And so I'm kind of like, is this, is it working? Is it working today? Is what 2008, what they were doing in that era, does that still work now? Because there was a really interesting change in kind of in tone in a way between Moffat and Russell T Davies, and that kind of nice progression, which the Moffat era is not perfect, but I on a whole I have to, I love it. So it was interesting. So I'm mixed. I don't really know what the rating of it would be just yet, but we'll get into it. So let's start from the very beginning. We have the new kind of introduction to Doctor Who, which is a very Marvel-esque title sequence.
Marvel has so much to answer for.
They really do. What did you think?
There were two different parts of my brain that were warring in this exact moment. One of which was like, oh, this is really cool. And a nice way to sort of honor 60 years for this anniversary.
Yes.
And then a slightly more rational part of my brain that went, what has Marvel done?
Yes.
I'm like, well, here's Disney Plus. This is where the Disney Plus money went into into a universe logo. Do we need a
Yes.
universe logo when there's only one show?
That's yes. Do we need a universe when it is mostly one? There's a Sarah Jane Chronicles or Adventures,
Yeah.
whatever it's called. There's
And there
some
will obviously, yeah, there will be more again. I'm sure Russell is working on other things that will come up, but yeah,
yes. There was Class that went about as far as I could throw.
I never saw that.
I never did either. That's why it didn't go very far.
Um,
Made it about
yeah.
one season, I think.
Yeah, I get it. It's like, it's this new unified brand, and it's the channel within iPlayer where you can watch the entire of the history of Doctor Who, be it black and white era, be it 80s era, be it now era, be it all of the spin-offs. So I get it. They're trying to unify it and say this is the is the thing, and they're coining the phrase from the fans and calling it the Whoniverse because that's what we've been calling it for decades.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't need it as a logo at the beginning, to be honest.
Yeah, I was the same. I didn't take well to that. I thought, oh God damn you, Marvel. God damn you.
Having said that, though, obviously
Yes.
a thing that you and I have talked about at length is Star Trek, and you do get that at the beginning of every episode of Star Trek now.
You do, and I hate it.
I love that one.
Maybe hate is a strong word. I don't hate it. What I don't like is that it's at the beginning of every episode on the DVD.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That to me is it's something that you can leave on the streaming. I don't need it on my box set. Like, cut that off.
It is a bit like, well, I've tuned in to watch Star Trek, or in this case, Doctor Who. I don't necessarily need a logo that tells me I'm watching Doctor Who or Star Trek. I suppose at least with Marvel, the idea was that it's the production company logo. It's Marvel Studios. They are the production company. And that's how I know it's obviously grown into its own thing from there, but that was obviously what it was invented for. It was just their production company logo.
Yes.
So,
and I love the original Marvel logo. Like back they were like X-Men with the flipping panels, that to me is the best. And I think their newer one with the big, I don't care about that. So it was annoying that Doctor Who went straight for that. And I felt like, yeah, that's definitely a Disney note. You need a big universe logo.
Yeah.
Some old man in a room is smoking. This is what you need to do, okay? Get the universe
Brand
logo.
Identity. In case anyone tuning in does not know this is Doctor Who, you need to tell them it's Doctor Who.
Right. Yeah, so it's a bit weird, but I do want to talk a bit later on about the Whoniverse and maybe what some of this stuff might be signaling that they've done there, because there's the classic era and then there's the new Who era.
And now there's new Who era.
And what's coming next.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that. I feel like we're looking at, it's interesting. So, okay, so the opening of the episode is David Tennant standing against a green screen with a bunch of space swirling behind him, reminding everybody what in the world was going on back in 2008 when him and Donna were the stars of the hit show Doctor Who on BBC One. We get a lovely fun recap of season 4, and kind of catch everyone up to speed. Really interesting to me that they started off with this. What were your thoughts on this? Did it? Yeah.
I mean, I just rewatched season 4. We literally just finished rewatching season 4 yesterday. Perfectly timed for this. So I didn't really need a reminder, but I guess if you, I mean, I had, there were people that were messaging me whilst that was on saying, I've never watched this before. Can you just explain to me how he's back? Like a number of people got in touch while it was on to just ask questions. So I guess actually for people like that who were caught up in this, he's back, it's this big new thing, it's got more money, it's going to be a big deal, this is Saturday night blockbuster TV again. I guess it was good for those people to get if you haven't seen this before, this is kind of what was going on beforehand. So I think possibly not necessarily needed for the majority of the audience who will have already seen it all, but good for new viewers to get a quick catch up onto where these two had come from and how they got to this point.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the catch up. I definitely that would be required for this long stint of not seeing this person. But again, interestingly, I mean, back in the day when they brought Sarah Jane back, there was an expectation that you knew the show and
Yeah.
you knew what was going on, and so you understood that she was an old companion. So it was very interesting how much they emphasized series 4, and this is something I've been saying for a very long time, ever since Russell T Davies was announced coming back and David Tennant was coming back, and I've been saying that this feels like a soft reboot. This feels like
Yeah.
a soft reboot
Definitely.
is coming, and that's why we're returning to David Tennant, because I love the Moffat era, but it started to get, it was a bit rusty by the end, and needed some oiling. The Chibnall era is, in my opinion, utterly unwatchable. That's no dig on the cast or casting, but that is just the writing. Just terrible. I can't do it. I can't stomach it. It just was needless retconning after retconning after retconning. It's just like, what are you doing, man? So I feel like this is a way for Russell to go back and say, forget everything. Forget what has been going on for the past 10 plus years in Doctor Who. We're going to go back to this kind of peak of Who and carry on from there. And the other interesting thing about this is that when we meet the Doctor, there's no sense of regeneration hiccups.
No, there is not. We're straight into it.
Yes, he's like fully aware, fully knows what's what. That's never happened before. Which sort of makes me feel like this is, I don't see him as Doctor 14, or is it 14 to 30? Yeah, 14.
It's 14, yeah.
I see him as 10.2. It's not. He's basically 10. 10 is back. He's not really. There's no, other than like the clothes and his hair. There's literally no difference to him. So I'm like, okay, I know this is playing on a little bit of that scene in The Day of the Doctor where Tom Baker comes back and he says, maybe you'll start revisiting a few of your old favorite faces.
Yeah.
We're clearly back to we're going there now. It's the idea that the Doctor can now pick and choose his face. What did you think of the idea early on? Because the Doctor's like, why is his face back? What were your thoughts about that? Because we have explored that in the past. That was literally the first season of Peter Capaldi. Is why did he choose that face?
Yeah, and I know it's just terrible because I really like Capaldi, but I often forget that period kind of exists. Especially poor Bill.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah. It's interesting. It is interesting. I half expected them to drop some weird, half-baked explanation really quickly. So I'm glad that hasn't kind of occurred yet, and that it's still sort of a mystery. And I hope it's a mystery that they are actually going to give some context to, because I would hate for this to just happen and then there's Shooty, and we've not really. It feels like if you're going to do this, obviously we know it's because they're probably the most popular pair that's still alive and able to carry off making new episodes, and it's an anniversary, so it's nice to do this. But you need that kind of context, otherwise it's just a cash grab to make it popular again.
Yes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I do, after watching this episode, I feel a little bit more that than anything else, that this is just not necessarily a cash grab, because I think there is some genuine love behind this revival.
Oh yeah, totally.
But I do feel like it's like, what's the easiest way to get people back in the door, back through the door? Yeah. And this is the way they've chosen to do it. And in this sort of period of nostalgia overload, there's a part of me, it's like I don't know if I'm accepting it as much as I would have done if this was maybe post Peter Capaldi or something like that.
Yeah.
Because we're so nostalgia. Everything is so, Star Wars is super nostalgia heavy. Marvel is, the bloody trailer adverts for the Marvels had Iron Man and Captain America in it, and like talked about Thanos and stuff. And it's like, that film's only like 5 minutes old, guys. Like you're acting, like, stop it. Like, let's allow something to just exist. So there is a part of me that's sort of like, are we really, you want to set up Shooty and his tenure, but you're clearly worried that it's not going to happen if he just takes over straight away. And
Yeah.
therefore we need this interim period of reminding people of what Doctor Who used to be like and what it could be, and potentially where it's going. But I do get sort of a hack vibe a little bit. That might be too harsh a word, but the idea of like, oh, we need to bring David Tennant back. Everyone loves him too. Bring him back. I like seeing him back in an anniversary special. I just don't know how I'm feeling about him as a 14th Doctor carrying things forward. We got a new title sequence and a new version of the theme. What did you think about that?
I enjoyed it. Ended up being a little bit briefer than I thought it was going to be. It all sort of wrapped up quite quickly, and I could have quite happily sat there and listened to even more of it. So it was good. Obviously, that you get it at the end as well. But I really liked the animation. It was a nice. It was immediately you were like, okay, yeah, there's more money here.
Yes,
the visual effects are so much better, so much crisper.
Yes,
yeah, it was good. And I mean, the theme tune is just one of those things that it's one of those moments where you're like, well, I need to turn the TV up and blow the speakers out because this is just one of the classics.
Yes.
And it was great to have Murray Gold back. I thought it was a really nice version. It didn't go back to an older version from David Tennant's time. It had echoes of some of David Tennant's.
Yes.
At the same time, it was still new, which was really nice. So if you come to give us your opinion as well, here comes Oliver. So it won me over straight away. Really, really enjoyed that, and I hope that they drop a mini soundtrack for each episode, because I would quite happily dive into the music from that already.
Yes, Murray Gold, my God, is a Doctor Who genius when it comes to music. I mean, I listen to his music all the time, like frequently, multiple times a week, and I have done for years, because he wrote some of the most just incredible pieces of music that just they have such really good atmosphere. And
just checked, and there's no soundtrack yet.
Damn. And the thing is, if you go and listen to David Tennant's theme, Matt Smith's theme, Peter Capaldi's theme, you have three very distinct, thrilling themes, and you're like, the fact that this composer is able to do such unique stuff, but like it feels, and it just matches those Doctors perfectly. It was wonderful.
It really frames each of those eras perfectly by just tweaking it and just changing things slightly and giving a different personality. It really, really, really works.
Yes,
and I think people probably don't. A lot of people probably don't pick up on that as much as maybe like score aficionados do, but it really like that can make or break an era like that, when you've got a show that is so, themes are similar but characters change. You need something like that really works to drive home the differences.
Yeah, and I did. What I also liked about the intro is, like you said, there were flourishes of the 2000 and I guess 6, when David Tennant took over the theme tune. There's the beginning of that has a little bit of that kind of drum. It was very drummy, which was very reminiscent of that period. So I like that. So I'm happy to have him back. It was interesting that again we get David Tennant's theme, though he's not the 10th Doctor. We also get in one scene Matt Smith's theme.
I missed
that. there's a dun, 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 dun. One of the action moments they use that, and it's when Donna and the Doctor are in the ship, but they're trying to they're pressing buttons.
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, that was interesting, and it's the first time that Doctor Who has done that, where they've recycled an old theme for an action sequence that was, because I remember Murray Gold saying once when Peter Capaldi was taken over, he was like, should I just use Matt Smith's theme because it's become quite iconic for the Doctor now?
Which obviously, it really did. And
I was like, I wouldn't mind if you did, but he's like, no, I felt like Capaldi needed his own theme, and Capaldi's theme is great. So and we never hear, not that I can remember, I'm sure other people will be able to correct me on this, but I don't ever remember hearing Matt Smith's that theme in Capaldi's era. I don't think they ever did that. And to answer one question in the chat briefly, yes, Chief Brody rules. This is actually live and not pre-recorded. This is real. This is the real deal, the real goddamn deal. Okay, so we're through the titles. The show's kind of kicking off. The Doctor lands in Camden
Yes.
Town, which was
Really
fun.
great advert for Cyberdog. They really got their name out there.
Yes, you know what? I was like, oh, Cyberdog's still around. Oh, cool. I didn't know if it was still kicking. It's been a long, long time since I've been to Camden
Yeah,
Town.
I have not been to Camden in a long time, and I have not been in that shop in even longer.
Yes, exactly. No, very long time. So he lands and instantly bumps into Donna Noble, and we learn that what has she been doing for the last kind of we eventually learn it's been 15 years since the Doctor and Donna have been together. But we learned that at the end, last time we saw her, she won the lottery, 166 million pounds. We now learn that she's given it all away except enough money to buy a house. I just didn't buy it. The giving the money away. I don't know. Even Donna later on in the episode saying I did it because I was trying to be like you. Well, the Doctor's the one who gave you the money.
Yeah. I suppose she didn't know that, did she?
I guess not. But still. He does it all the time. The Doctor's always like people are magically winning the lottery. Like Matt Smith's Doctor did it a whole bunch of times. So I don't know if I bought that as much. I kind of thought you had 166 and you gave it all away. Like, to what cause?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously she has changed a little bit when you see her in the last of David Tennant's specials.
Yes.
It's at the end. It's the end of time, isn't it? But when you leave her in the last episode of season 4, when she's had her memory wipe, she is back to the completely selfish, self-absorbed, utterly unaware of anything going on around her version of Donna. And it doesn't feel like that version would have given that away. She would have just probably run off and moved to Barbados and lived the rest of her life on a beach.
Yes.
So I don't feel like that version of Donna would, maybe, given that she won it was her wedding day, wasn't it?
Yes. So it's end of time when she gets the.
There's been a couple more years between that, because that was 2010, which is why the 15 years thing was. I was like, I need to remember this. So I guess there's. I know what you mean. I did question whether that's something that Donna would do, but I suppose there was enough time that we hadn't spent with her there that maybe she had moved on, and then you get the context that the Doctor has always been inside there, sort of influencing her personality a bit.
Yeah. I guess for me, I'm like, I don't know if I buy Donna doing that. I might buy Donna doing something charitable.
Yeah.
I don't know if I buy this kind of altruistic, I'm going to give all this money. Bullshit. I kind of call bullshit, because you could have a really good life for yourself and for your family. You could support your kid through college and all sorts of stuff. You could set up a business. So much you could do other than just give it all away. So I didn't buy it. I didn't. Sorry. That's for me. That's a tick. That's if I'm, if I'm grading this is something for me. I'm like, okay, nope, I don't circle this bit. Don't buy it. Tell the student you need to explain this better. You need to rewrite this. I don't buy it. And then of course we get a lovely kind of reminiscent of Donna being ignorant to what's going on around her.
Yep.
Spaceship comes crashing through London, and she's busy looking through her bag or something like that, and misses the whole thing. But we are introduced to her daughter, whose name is Rose, which I guess it kind of like it's becoming a little hammy. It's becoming maybe one too many member berries. We already have Donna. Her kid's named Rose. We get it, Rose. Doc. We get it. What are your thoughts on the name Rose coming back?
I needed to understand a bit more about the character first, because I wasn't sure whether we were going to make reference to whether she was a trans character or not. So whether she was born female and that Donna had named her Rose, or that she had been born, as we learned. I think it was Jason was the name, was
Jason. Yeah,
that the kids were screaming in the street, and that she had then transitioned as a teenager and she had picked the name Rose, or that between her and her mother they had come up with the name Rose, and whether there would be any context as to where that came from. So I needed the episode to tell me more about her character first before I could really make a judgment on it. And so then you do get to that, and I realize I'm skipping ahead slightly, but you get to the moment where you kind of realize there's more going on with Rose than we knew about.
Yes.
And you do get a bit of an explanation as to actually there were things that were just she didn't experience that are in her head that she was just plucking from. So I guess the one thing that is standing out to me straight away is that actually the one thing that I always remember particularly about what Russell T Davies says about Doctor Who is that he doesn't make it as a kids show. It's not a kids, it's not a children's show.
Yeah.
It's a show that children watch at tea time on a Saturday and are either scared by and love.
Yeah.
And so then some of the stuff like Donna being completely altruistic, and some of the stuff that I'm sure, I was about to say I'm sure people are offended by. My Twitter is full of people sending me messages going, woke shit.
Right.
I give some of that an extra maybe free pass than I would if it was an adult show, because it's presenting the message in a way that is going to inform younger people watching it about the kind of topics at the same time. So rightly or wrongly, I think I give it a bit more of a free pass than I probably would do if we were talking about like an episode of Star Trek, because I know that this is Russell T Davies's way of trying to inform a younger audience about things that maybe you can't write too complex because they wouldn't understand it or go over their heads.
Yeah, I agree with you with that. There is definitely an element of that. I guess, if I go back to like classic Who, and by classic I mean like the 60s through the 80s, I don't really feel that it held kids' hand at that point either. But I also agree that I do like that Russell T Davies doesn't talk down to kids with his stuff. I really do appreciate that, and it's something I really loved when Matt Smith was my first Doctor. Technically I knew about Doctor Who, but I didn't watch it in the States. I moved over here, and it wasn't really on. It was like David Tennant was coming to an end, and then his final special was on, and then the first one I really watched was Matt Smith, and then I loved that. And literally between his first and second episode, I went back and devoured all of David Tennant and Christopher Eccleston. And then during Matt Smith's first run, I went and devoured as much classic Who, because this was back at a time when people had posted all the episodes on YouTube. And I was just watching them all in parts, and was watching First Doctor, Fourth, all of them, and loving it, and then sort of just downloaded it all into my brain when I probably should have been studying. But that's besides the point. Rose. I probably would have not gone with the name Rose because it felt a little on the nose. Especially since it's I get it that, as you said, later in the show we understand that she shares some of that meta-crisis knowledge and energy and whatnot, and that's kind of explaining that and the dolls that she was making in her shed and whatever. Fine, I get it. But you can gorge on member berries, and I think in a show where you're bringing back one of the most popular modern day Doctors, and companion, to then so many things were referenced. You had the Dr. Donna being referenced, you had the Shadow Proclamation happening, you had a lot of Russell T Davies era stuff just really crammed into this episode, and I was like, wow, this is a bunch of stuff. Now my problem that I have with Rose, because I do have a problem with a couple of characters, and she's one of two that I have an issue with, is that she's not a character by any stretch. Who is she? We don't know. We don't spend any time with her other than seeing kind of transphobia.
Yeah.
And for me, I thought, well, do you even need that? Like, do you need that commentary in this episode? Or would it have just been better to just have the character living and breathing and existing and accepting, rather than literally have characters in the dark, in the shadow, who we don't see ever again, throw some crap at her verbally and then go away? What narrative purpose did that really do for the episode. Like, cut my thing is, if you can cut it from the plot and it doesn't affect the plot,
you didn't
do you need it?
Yeah.
And I have to admit, on this again, you didn't need it. So it's like, damn, it's like there's things that are just like close. Like you could, you almost have it, but it's like shoehorning. It felt a bit shoehorned in. It's like, I don't, and I felt the same way a lot of times with Bill, who was the 10th Doctor's, no, not the 10th Doctor, was Peter Capaldi's companion in the 10th season.
Yeah.
Who was, she was lesbian, and I thought she was great, but her character was so wafer thin, and it was like, she had to tell she had to look into the camera every episode and say, oh, hey, by the way, I'm gay. Now off on our adventure. And it's like, you had a really good relationship with Rory and Amy, and you have a good relationship with the Doctor and Riversong. Why can you not give, why couldn't Bill have had a companion, a partner that is also a companion with her and the Doctor? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like at the moment, Doctor Who, since kind of that last season of Peter Capaldi and onwards, have not done very well with the way they handle these sorts of characters. It still feels... Doctor Who felt more progressive back in 2005, 6, 7, and 8 than I think it is right now. It's still a little bit sort of, they haven't really nailed this, the way they want to handle these characters. I don't think.
And that was obviously something that people complained about a lot with towards the end of Chibnall, because you had the Doctor Kiss. Jazz. No, Jazz. That's
that memorable character.
Yeah. Yeah, you had the Doctor Kiss Yaz, did that, and that was obviously something that the fans were supposed. Yeah, again, I kind of checked out by this point. Or something that the fans apparently really wanted and really felt between those two characters, that there was a narrative there and a story to be told, and that they kissed and then nothing was ever made of it again.
Yes. Yeah. It's like, why do that? Like, why do the sort of, it feels very baiting. It's like, we're gonna dangle it in front of you, but then we're not gonna give you anything. And it's like, well, David Tennant's Doctor was all over Rose, and then his clone went off away with Rose. So it's like, come on, like we know that he's into stuff. He's into stuff. He likes romance. Or she, whichever version of the Doctor he is, it's come on. So yeah, that's one I have to admit, I had the problem with Rose with that. I felt, I don't really know what she brought to the episode, sadly.
Yeah. I was interested to see, because I have watched both seasons of Heartstopper, which is obviously where Yasmin Finney has really made a name for herself.
Yeah.
So I was interested to see how she did in a role that was different, very different to that, and I thought she played it well with what she had, and I really enjoyed the scenes, particularly with her and Donna, particularly where Donna was kind of saying, I would burn the world for you, because she was so incensed by what had happened with the kids in the street, kind of the transphobia moment. So I guess a good gauge that I use for stuff like that is to see how people react to it. So like, I guess a good analogy for me is, I obviously get invited to watch quite a lot of films before they're released. And if I get invited to something which is a family movie, I will always make sure that I go to something like that and sit near families rather than sit with like just a bunch of middle-aged men like me, because it's not aimed at me, because I then like to see how the target audience kind of reacts to it and responds to it. So it was interesting seeing some of the responses to that on social media as those moments were playing out, because same with the new scientist from UNIT who was in a wheelchair. I immediately saw a few users on Twitter who are in wheelchairs say, oh my god, I kind of see myself in Doctor Who, this is amazing. And you could see that there were some trans people on social media saying, this is really nice to see this. I'm glad that Doctor Who is showing a younger audience and a wider audience and a Saturday night BBC One audience, firstly, what it can be like walking down the street when someone shouts at me, and then secondly, how fiercely protective families can be. So whilst I agree with you on the point that I think she wasn't maybe developed enough, I think it showed something which is important to people and that people want to see more of.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a kind of a balance there. I think you need a bit more character, but at the same time, I admire that he was, because obviously Russell T Davies has done plenty of quite challenging shows, but
yes,
when he does his most challenging stuff, it tends to be more of a kind of Friday night 10 p.m. or Channel 4 at 11 o'clock at night kind of thing that a younger audience doesn't get to see. So I guess there was kind of a trade-off between what can we do and what can we fit within an hour. I really thought that these specials were going to be 90 minutes. I'm surprised that they're just 3 1-hour episodes.
Yes.
I think an anniversary deserves something a bit more feature-length. Here we are.
I would have thought so too. That's to kind of jump on from that is I agree that like just having the representation is a nice thing. There's too much telling though. There's just seeing. It's kind of, oh, we're gonna tell you about the troubles. We're gonna tell you. Just either do the story, or don't do the story. I think that's my problem with it. But also I agree. Like this was a classic like 15-minute episode that you would have got back in the day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this whole time I'm thinking, man, there's a lot of stuff in this episode. There's a lot of expectation. And it really, it just sort of went so easily back to 2008 structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Without the sort of mindset of this is an anniversary special episode.
Yeah.
It felt like it felt like almost David Tennant had never left.
Yeah.
And we were just watching a random episode in the middle of a season.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, like I meant when the 50th happened, man, there was stuff all over the place. It was intense. It was great. And that 50th, the Day of the Doctor was a very good episode. It's not perfect, but it's very, very good. And so I kind of was expecting just a little bit more acknowledgement of a legacy to kind of happen here, but it was that was interesting. So let's move on to the story. So Donna, where are we at? Donna is at home, and then we learn it's been 15 years since she's seen the Doctor. So I think you said that means it's what, 2025?
It must be 2025, because the last time the last time we saw them see each other, and when they left those roles officially, was 2010. Because I've seen, again, a lot of the people that have been kind of critical of Yasmin Finney's casting for whatever reason, I'll leave that to hang as it does, have said, well, this isn't possible. She can't have a 15-year-old daughter. It was 2010. It's 2023. She didn't have a baby. She wasn't pregnant when she got married. She can only be 12 or 13. It's like, well, actually, no one said this was 2023. And there you go. Straight away. It's been 15 years. Oh, okay. So we're a couple of years in the future. Fair enough. She had a baby pretty quickly after she got married.
Yeah. I mean, I can buy that. I can buy that. Obviously, Doctor Who, it's time travel, so sure. I think where people are getting hung up, and I can sort of understand it, is that every Doctor, when they regenerate, they kind of, when they come back to modern day, it's always now. Yeah. So David Tennant came back to, not David Tennant, but Matt Smith came to 2010. The whole thing pivoted around June whatever 2010. So I sort of get where people are coming from with that. It's like, well, wait a minute, this is what we're used to, but it's a slight variation. Doesn't really bother me. Anyway, Rose is in an alleyway outside her house, and some random kid comes up who is superfluous to the entire episode and tells her that there's this alien probe that's just crashed nearby, and she goes to see it. Now, again, this is where I'm having problems, because, like, look, you don't need that kid. That kid did nothing. He was useless to the plot. Like, I'm thinking about, there's one time someone was talking to me about, like, writing a radio script, and they're like, let's say you have a crime and you're writing crime drama, it's on a radio drama, right? And normally you'd have lots of police in like a novel or in a film and stuff like that, but you have to realize you're paying actors to come and do voices for stuff. Yeah. So what you need to do is amalgamate things. Yeah. And I felt that with this kid. I thought, well, this kid is totally useless. Like, I don't know his name. I don't know his relationship with Rose. I don't know why he's here. I don't know why you need this kid to tell her about this crashed spaceship. You don't. You just don't. She could have seen it on their way home, she could have, or someone could have texted her, like a random text, could be
Mm.
like, "Mate, did you see?" Blah, 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 blah? And
Yeah.
then she's like, "I'm gonna go investigate." And then she, you know, and not, "Oh, I need to go home and get my phone. Then I need to leave and get told that I need to take the bins out. Then I'm gonna go look at the ship." And you know, yeah, it just kind of, I didn't quite structurally. I'm like, this isn't really holding up as well as I liked. It feels like there are, you know, as you said, we should have had 90 minutes, and it feels like there's possibly a bunch of stuff that's missing, and they maybe chopped things down and cut characters down to fit that 50-minute schedule. Anyway, she looks at the spaceship and comes back home via the dark alley for some reason, and there's a noise, and you think something bad's going to happen, but she runs into the alien that is called Meep Meep. And it looks like a some sort of ratty. It's like Yoda fucked a rat, and that's the result. And what did you think of Meep Meep at first? What your initial thoughts on that?
I just needed to confirm my suspicions, which was that the Meep is a character who originated in the Doctor Who magazine comic strip.
Yes.
I wasn't sure whether it was the Meep or whether it was the weird bug thing.
Yeah. Cool design, by the way. Those things look pretty cool. I like those.
Really cool. So yeah, Meep was interesting. I thought Meep was very cute until Meep needed to not be cute. I thought this lent into the kind of kid-friendly side of Doctor Who, which is more of the Russell T Davies era than either of Moffat or Chibnall. I feel like the further you got away from Tennant, the less kid-friendly it kind of got. So I thought it was it was a nod to, again, bygone era, a nice connection to another medium of Doctor Who, which is cool, because obviously we've always pulled from villains from previous seasons of the TV show. We've never pulled something completely random like this before. Nice mix of practical and visual effects as well. I thought it looked really good when it was a visual effect, but the practical was also really, really good.
Yeah. It looked good when it was close up on the face.
Yeah.
When it's the pullback shot and you just see that it's some guy squatted down in a suit. It does have that classic cheesy Doctor Who villain vibe that, you know, you kind of got guy or gal in rubbery suit, like, you know, that the joke that Ricky Gervais always has in Extra is like, I don't want to be in Doctor Who, I don't want to be some rubbery villain, you know. So in general, it was kind of okay. In terms of the way it was acting and sounding, I was like, this is a cross between Grogu and Dobby. And again, I'm picturing a smoky executive room, you know, where someone's like, all right, okay, yeah, we'll use this thing from the magazine, but make it like Dobby from Harry Potter, and like that Grogu from that Star Wars show we got, you know. I'm just like, why he literally sounds, Meep literally sounds like Dobby.
Also Miriam Margolyes, which is a really interesting piece of casting. Yeah. It was, I guess it was, again, this is probably it just trying to be kind of kid friendly, but it was that, you immediately see the cute fluffy thing, so that's clearly the innocent thing that is in trouble. So she's going to rescue it, and it's going to be this lovely thing that she's going to do because she's a wonderful person. And then Donna's going to see it and freak out and remember that there's aliens. And then obviously there's the twist later on. So I thought it was very classic and just, I guess, probably safe choice.
Yes. I agree. I will admit, I did like the ultimate twist, which I'm happy to spoil, and that is the Meep Meep ended up being the villain, and the scary looking bug-eyed people are not the villains, and they are actually the good guys with stun guns, not actual, you know, shoot 'em up lasers.
And then you kind of realize from there that actually everything in this episode was telling you, don't judge a book by its cover, and kind of the idea of identity and people being who they are and not misjudging people based on appearances. It's all very leaning into the same thing thematically from almost every point of the episode.
So it's in terms of theme, that's definitely where it was going. In terms of the execution of that theme, I still think it's a little bit, it's a bit rusty. I still don't fully buy it. There's, you know, it's it's just it needed another draft. It needed some, and stuff needed some fleshed out a little bit, because the thing is, this episode is action packed.
It really is.
It moves quickly, and there's a lot of stuff happening, and everything is happening in a very short span of time. So in terms of theme and character, this is where I'm like, this story is sort of overrun by characters, and the theme is getting a little bit lost along the way, because we need to jump from this action scene shooting up Donna's house to running here to running there to all of London about ready to be ripped up from the ground, and so on and so forth. So again, I think my, like I said, my takeaway, kind of going back to my takeaway at this, I had this feeling of like, it's like we're back to that 2005 era style of writing, with a little bit of a modern tune up to it, but it's almost like it's imitating the past through a modern lens, and when I'm looking for the originality, I'm not sure I'm feeling the originality of this particular episode like I have in the past. Like, Matt Smith took over, great episode. That Doctor just felt, and I think it's the problem, is we don't have a new Doctor. We're going back to something we already know. So it's that sort of, I think for some people it's probably going to have to like lower some barriers, maybe.
Yeah.
Let it's going to ease people back in and stuff. But for an ultra critic and cynic like me, I'm like, you still need to impress me, even though you have David Tennant back. And Moffat did a better job bringing Tennant back impressively in Day of the Doctor. Like that, I mean, that scene of the three doctors sat in the prison when they're talking about how many children were on Gallifrey the day he did it.
Yeah,
is a very powerful scene, and you feel the way in which all three of these versions of the Doctor are dealing with that tragedy, or the tragedy to come in the War Doctor's case. So I'm like, that for me worked. This just felt we're going right back to zany, happy, bubbly David Tennant from series 3 kind of stuff. So I wanted to be impressed. I don't think I was as impressed as I would have liked. Shirley, we're introduced to Shirley. The Doctor is hanging out by the landed spaceship, and this lady comes up to the Doctor, who's looking at a computer screen that's, I think, coming from a sonic screwdriver or something like that.
Yeah.
The Sonic is doing a lot of new, powerful, maybe a little bit too powerful of things. It's a computer screen now. It can create force fields that he can move around.
Kind of loved that.
You know what? I didn't, and I'll tell you why. There was that clip going around of
powerful for sure.
Yeah, the Sonic was way too powerful during Moffat's era. Everything was solved with the wave of the Sonic. It was a magic wand, and it really annoyed me. They pulled the Sonic back during Capaldi's era, which was very, very wise. He barely used it, which I thought smart. But there was this clip of Moffat, I think during the 50th anniversary, and he was talking about like heroes, and he's like, we didn't, the Doctor didn't have a gun. He wasn't shooting people, and he was given a screwdriver, which is something he used to fix things. And I'm like, yeah, that's what the screwdriver is meant. It's meant to fix things. It's not meant to be making force fields, and it's not meant to be hollow projecting computer screens. And I get it. We're moving with the times and things like that, but at the same time, you can sort of overpower a piece of technology, and the Sonic feels like a much overpowered piece now. So while visually I was like, this is cool, I'm like, I would have much rather you've just like invented, like, I don't know, a Sonic something else, or just something else that I could have bought into that a little more, other than just, okay, we're giving the Sonic even more power. It can stop lasers being, and gun and bullets and stuff like that. Well, man, I feel like the Doctor could have used that kind of technology a long time ago.
Yeah, but he didn't have the Disney Plus budget. I think I felt like, so yeah, again, this is kind of the rational and irrational fan brain kind of argument.
Yeah.
The irrational brain just went, okay, this looks so cool. I'm so glad we have more money. And
yes, I agree.
In my head, I was kind of thinking, I was almost watching David Tennant on set with them going, right. And so now put your hands out because you're holding a force field and you're just going to push it. And him thinking, wow, we couldn't afford this before.
Yes.
Like, this is like the Disney money is cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the rational brain's going, well, clearly this is the easiest option to use something that's already established, the screwdriver, to signify to the audience that we can do more now.
Yeah, yes. I mean, again, I don't know. I feel like blowing up Donna's house in the way they did was indication enough that they've got a lot of money. I was like, okay, really wow, they're
effects. Like blowing up the 4x4, and actually that, you know, they really blew that truck up.
Yes.
And the stuff in the street, that was all very, very very real. We haven't seen that for quite a long time.
No, I appreciated that. That was nice stuff. I cannot fault this episode by any means on its production it's definitely up there. And it was also nice that they were utilizing a lot of real space. With this episode.
Yeah, we weren't really confined to kind of any soundstage particularly until you get to the TARDIS, which we'll
get to that to the end. We'll save that for the end. I got opinions as I always do. So Shirley, the Doctor meets this woman named Shirley, who is the scientific. Well, God, I had the name written down.
She was science specialist number 56.
Yes, 56. So the Doctor was number 1.
Yeah.
Way back in the day with John Pertwee, the third Doctor, when he joined UNIT, when he was stranded on Earth. Again, like Rose, I was like, interesting, nothing to her. Other than she has rockets in her wheelchair that can blow shit up.
Apparently everyone has rockets in a wheelchair, so she says.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is where I'm like, you know, thinking about, okay, we have random boy who comes and goes. Donna's husband comes and goes and doesn't do anything. Sylvia is important, I think. But Rose really isn't important until they kind of shoehorn importance at the very, very, very end. Shirley isn't really important either. There's a lot of it was baffling to me how many characters they were introducing, and I'm like, I don't know which of these characters you're introducing as proper setup for we're going to be here for the next few episodes, or we might be here for the long haul. Like, is this Shirley going to be coming in and out with Shudi's Doctor? Like, what's going on? Or is this just like, you know, it just felt like we have a bigger budget, so we have an excuse to have superfluous characters in this show. So I wanted to like her, but there's just not enough to like. There's not enough to dislike. There's just not enough. There's not enough to that character either. And again, when I think back in the day to like, you know, the first episode with David Tennant, if we go back to the Christmas invasion, you know, well, no, let's go back to Eccleston. Like we understood who Rose was. Rose was our view into the world. We understood Rose. We understood she was a jackass to Mickey, and Mickey was a little bit of a pansy. And we also understood her mom, Rose's mom. I can't remember her mom's name now. She's escaped my mind. That lady.
Yeah.
Sure. Her. But we understood each of them, and we understood this is going to be the people who are important to the Doctor moving forward. With this one, I'm like, you know, Sylvia, yes, she's important. Donna's important. I don't know how important the dad is. He just seems really okay with everything for some reason. Jackie Tyler.
That was going to haunt me if I didn't remember that. I'll look it up.
Yes, Jackie. Love Jackie. But yeah, like so Donna's husband, why is he just fine with everything that's going on around him? He's just...
I really thought, actually, when he walked back into the house and everyone was there and they all kind of did that really classic moment where everyone looks and they all just stop. Yeah. I really thought when it went to the close-up on him that he was just going to do the classic feint and just drop backwards off camera.
Yes.
So I was quite surprised when he just went, okay, so what's for dinner?
Yes. Yeah, it was... Again, one of those moments of I mean, Doctor Who suspends disbelief all the time, but...
Really? I thought it was a reality show.
Right. Wouldn't that be something? You go in a TARDIS and you like open up the door and you have to like you're transported to some like village or alien world. You have to like survive in this environment for a week or a month or something like that. That'd be hilarious. That's a good reality TV show. There you go, Disney Plus. Take it and run. But yeah, I just again I sort of thought, I feel we need some bigger reactions from this guy. Like sometimes it's fun when someone goes into the TARDIS and they're very cool with it. But I'm like, sometimes Doctor Who can be tricky because you don't really know what do people know about aliens and things.
Yeah.
So like you have the Cybermen in Victorian London in the next Doctor episode. Like, okay, that's Victorian London, so that must have been not even Victorian London. That's like before that's like Dickensian London. So is that in the history books? Is the spaceship that crashed into Big Ben, is that still like, it's sort of what is and what isn't. So I guess, if it's a common occurrence, I can see why he might not be crazy shocked, but there's an alien monster in his house. You'd be, if it was a dog in your house, you'd be like, what the hell is there a dog doing? Let alone a 5 foot, 4 foot, offspring of Yoda and Splinter. I don't know. So yeah, that's a little nitpick for me.
I wonder whether Shirley is a character, because again, I don't know how much of this is true or not, but there are plenty of rumors that there is a unit show in development along the lines of kind of a similar sort of adjacent Torchwood Doctor Who kind of setup for the future, as one of the potential ideas that they are mulling over as having another show in this universe. So whether she would be, whether this was a let's try and figure out some characters that could work if we were to do something that focused on unit.
But okay, so let me ask you this then: is your first of your anniversary specials the place to do a backdoor pilot?
Yeah.
My answer to that would be no. No, don't do it. Make her a good enough character, and I mean, like Jack, the character of Jack, great character. Jack Harkness, great character. His introductory episode that they did, iconic. Literally an iconic episode of Doctor Who. And it's like, oh, we can keep using this character because he was so well developed.
Exactly. You stumble on it by accident, you don't force it.
Yeah.
When you force it, it tends to not work. So
yes, and again, I mean, a character like River Song, she's in for one episode, and then look what Moffat was able to go and do with her for several seasons in a row. Fantastic, in my opinion. So it's like, or and spin-offs and stuff. I'm a little bit like, I know the Sarah Jane Adventures. I mean, that was super kiddie. That was very, very, very for kids. And the couple times where they had some Doctor Who crossovers were fun. The Matt Smith episode, that was good, but I just don't know how successful really Doctor Who spin-offs. I guess, are they worth it? Is Earth that interesting?
Have you ever rewatched Torchwood? Have you ever watched Torchwood?
I watched the first 2 seasons. I couldn't finish I watched the first season, couldn't finish the second. Watched the 2 special series.
Yeah,
that they did, and I mean, ugh.
The rewatch value is terrible.
Yes,
the special series are more rewatchable than season 1 and 2.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Season 1 and 2 I find very, very cringeworthy now.
Yes, except for the sexy Cyberwoman. Because it's for adults, so we need a sexy Cyberwoman.
Like this will probably mean very, very little to you, but for anyone that kind of grew up in the same era as me, being in the UK, will maybe know what I'm talking about. So obviously we have our soap operas. One of the worst, and one that is aimed at teenagers, is Hollyoaks, which is on Channel 4. They used to do this thing in the late 90s, early noughties called Hollyoaks Later, which they'd have like a week, just 1 week of episodes. They'd be on at like 11 o'clock at night. Yeah. And it basically just took characters from the show and just let them get naked and have sex. That's all it was. And that's what Torchwood feels like. It's like, let's just inject nothing but sex into Doctor Who.
Yes.
And I do not understand it. I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I agree. Torchwood was a hard pill to swallow, and that was under Russell T Davies, which makes me...
when it was first on as well. I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah. I hang on
Wow.
that show every episode. And I
Wow.
was like, this is just. I mean, I must have been what? I was like 19, 20 when it was on.
Mm.
Clearly,
I
I
guess
was.
it was very of that era, and
Yeah.
so I can kind of get it. Who was at a peak?
Yeah.
That show at the time was also maybe not peak British television, but it was like up there with like the kind of stuff you watch on a regular basis that you look back on, you're like, God, why did we watch any of that?
I know, obviously, that was still when everything was being produced in Cardiff. I was living in Cardiff at the time. So it was also like, oh, look, this is like
Yes.
a club that we go every Friday night is now in an episode of Torchwood.
You're the always you're the Leonardo DiCaprio gif, constantly
Yeah,
snapping and
exactly,
pointing.
exactly.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's the movie I was looking for. Okay, so let's kind of speed through a couple of things then. So there was the stairs comment. I thought that was again a bit silly. I didn't need it. Didn't need it. Didn't need it. Didn't need it.
Yeah, I think you could have gotten away with either just not doing it at all and it just not being mentioned, or having not had him bring it up and her making the joke, which was just get on with it.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't need
Like,
him. You didn't need him to frame it. You just needed nothing, or for her to be like, fuck, stairs.
Yeah.
Well, you do it.
Like, imagine Professor Xavier.
He'd have floated up.
Well, true. But okay, imagine Patrick Stewart, Professor Xavier.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like you just sometimes we get it.
Yeah,
we get it. Like it's fine. Have the characters, make her a character. That's fine. But like again, this kind of felt like with the in shadow, the transphobia guys in shadow screaming some stuff at Rose. This felt very similar to that. Like, oh, we just need to like hang this hook here. Like, okay, why? Like, what did that moment bring? It didn't bring any levity. It didn't bring anything. It just sort of. And I get her comment was like, oh, don't make it about me. It's like, I mean, I get it, but like we don't even know you yet. So if you were a well established character, then I could buy some sort of comment being made, but wasn't enough. We get the moment where Donna finds out about Meep Meep, which is very much a E.T. ripoff, except an E.T. Yeah, so that was okay, I guess. I guess again, where I'm like, I'm looking for originality, and they're ripping off E.T. I'm like, eh. Also, in Rose's shed, until the end, when they made it clear what her little dolls that she was making were, we really didn't even. You had to be really eagle-eyed and probably pausing to look around the room, because there wasn't really any moment to. I felt like there really wasn't a moment to like look at what she was doing, because she was basically making monsters that Donna had seen throughout her time with the Doctor. What are your thoughts on that?
I weirdly got it straight away.
Did you?
Yeah, I think it was the one that Meep Meep held that was like a devil. I was like, oh, that's from the devil episode. And I was like, oh, one eye, like a Dalek. And at which point my brain went,
okay. But it went past me, but maybe it's because I was taking notes.
No, well, that was the thing. I think it was purely coincident. It just because you'd seen the devil type thing in that opening monologue. I don't think I'd have put two and two together otherwise. And it was only because I'd seen it in that monologue and thought, oh, that looks like the devil. My brain went, oh, hang on a minute. What are the rest of these toys? That I then started looking. So I think it was by pure chance. I don't think I would normally have spotted something like that on first watch.
Yeah, no. So I guess we kind of talked a little bit about other bits in that. The Meep Meep is actually the bad guy, and the bug-eyed guys are there to capture him, things like that.
Again, a very practical costume, I thought.
I agree. What were they called? The Wraiths of some kind.
I missed the name completely because I was trying to
Wraith Warriors. Wraith Warriors is what their name was. Or at least that's what the Meep Meep called them. They looked super cool. I really, really liked that design. That was a cool, finally a cool new original design. I'm like, oh, nice. Yeah. Looked cool, sounded cool. That was all fine. Then basically the big sort of crescendo of everything is that the Meat Beep has a ship and it's going to take off, and by taking off, it's going to rip up all of London, and once again, and I think this is because of I recently rewatched The Day of the Doctor, and The Day of the Doctor again has that plot where Kate Lethbridge Stewart is facing off against the Zygons with the boxes, and it's, will you destroy millions of lives to save billions of lives, which was the problem that the Doctor had with the Time War. Will I just wipe out my entire planet, my entire race, and the Dalek to stop the Daleks and protect the universe? And so you have a really nice sort of mirroring effect in The Day of the Doctor with that. And again, so that's why all of London is in jeopardy. It's fine, cool. Again, many times before, all of London has been in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And I did sort of wonder, are we doing a Star Trek 2009 where we're blowing up planets right out the gate? Could this have been stripped back a little bit? Did it need to be all of London is going to be ripped up out of the earth scenario? I get it, it's big stakes, it's big drama, but some of the best episodes of Doctor Who are big drama, little stakes.
Yeah, true.
Personal stakes. I mean, the Vashta Narada, the Silence in the Library. It's all about just these people dying one by one. But it's terrific and thrilling and tragic when Riversong dies. Could you just done something maybe along those lines? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the straight away my thing with that was, I thought it looked, again, that was another great way of showing us that there's a bigger budget and that you've got a better visual effects team now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Doctor Who isn't exactly a show that, kind of sort of touching on something that you've already said, it doesn't, it can have a serialized arc, but it's episodic. So when a spaceship crashes into Big Ben, we never particularly hear about that ever again. There might be a passing reference somewhere where someone will go, do you remember that time a ship flew into Big Ben? Or like at the end of season 4 when Donna, they do the Turn Left episode where she has to live what it would have been like if she'd never met the Doctor. Yes. And you relive some of those moments that have happened since the first time she'd met him.
Yep.
This is not a show that particularly goes back to big stuff like that.
No.
Which was fine in 2004-5 when it first came back. And you saw the show kind of gradually move away from that, particularly again in the Moffat and Chibnall eras. But now, I don't know where they go in the next episode, but at whichever point they return to this London needs to be devastated because we saw whole streets falling apart.
Well, no, but you remember at the end.
Did it fix?
It fixed. It fixed. So they got the instant fix. I thought the same thing. I thought, how are you going to repair this? Okay, you have the magic button. Yeah. The magic button that apparently if you just turn the engines off, it reverses everything that was just done.
Which is another classic Doctor Who problem of we fix everything and resolve it a little bit too easily.
Yeah. Yes. So they didn't wave a screwdriver around, but they definitely resolved an ultra big problem a little too quickly for me.
But then I suppose there's still then the emotional reaction, which is people in London are going to be a bit like, bloody hell, like, everything fell apart and fixed itself.
Yeah, and because it's like, okay, all the streets are crumbling. Are you telling me no one fell in those holes? So if they fell in the holes, did they just get spat back up and they were fine?
Or were they almost back up, like just inside the hole, clinging on for dear life, and it's sealed over them, which is even more traumatizing.
Right. It again. We're and this has been my worry for a while with Doctor Who and the partnership with Disney. I did a live stream on my former podcast called Luke Deckard Show, which is archived on this YouTube channel, where I said, is doing a deal with Disney, a deal with the devil, and there's a part of me that still feels like it is because Disney haven't really produced anything of quality for a very long time. They haven't done anything iconic in decades. Like what has Disney done that's been the new iconic thing? Like I can't think of a single.
I don't
What's
know when Frozen was, but that's probably the last time they had like an ultra mega hit.
Yeah, and that's mostly Pixar. It's tricky, but obviously they bought that out. So it's like I'm like, in my head I'm like Toy Story and then maybe a couple of Pixar films are about all they have. But, but that's again Disney powered with Pixar. That's not Disney on its own. Disney solo they haven't done anything. So I'm like, we're getting the kind of Marvelization of Doctor Who by this
Yeah. Interesting,
this like, because if you think about the snap was as everyone vanished and disappeared, and it was like, the Marvel cinematic version of the Rapture, which cracked me up. But then it's like they just brought everyone back and everyone was fine. I'm like, well, wait, if you brought everyone back to the exact moment they were when this happened, like people are going to be in the midair.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be in airplanes. Those airplanes are not going to be there. So you've now just killed a whole bunch of people. So, so we're in that, but it was everything, but it was like no one talked about it. Everything was just fine. No one talked about the impact of the blip. And I know Doctor Who has had lots of huge, almost world-ending events, and they do get glossed over. So I'm not trying to be too harsh on this episode, but I am just, because Disney are involved, I'm like, I don't want this to be too squeaky clean. I don't want this to just be sort of this stuff to be brushed over and totally ignored, because I don't necessarily think that things were fully ignored with Tennant and Smith and Capaldi. There were sort of remembrances here and there of stuff that happened. So yeah, I don't know. The resolve was pretty simple, a little too easy for me.
I feel like that's a Russell T Davies thing. And I don't know if that comes back to his kind of idea that the ethos is that it's a show that kids can watch, albeit be scared by. Because I feel like when you go back to a lot of his era, there are a lot of episodes that start out with a more measured pacing that just go a little bit too fast towards the end and will often rush to a conclusion, not because they feel like they've run out of time, but because he often feels like it's the most exciting way to do it, which I don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah,
I feel like his idea is, we start out really slow and then we just go like, and we just fly and we really accelerate because that's really exhilarating to watch.
Yes.
Because sometimes it will work and sometimes it really doesn't work. So I feel like that's inherently a bit of a thing with his writing as well. That is maybe something I don't quite mesh with.
No, I can totally see that. What did you think about the scene with Donna and the Doctor when they've been in the spaceship trying to shut things down? There's the glass between them. I mean, I couldn't help but think this is the end of time. This is the Doctor on one side, Wilf on the other side. Da 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 da. There's even a moment where the Doctor has to decide, I can stop the ship by giving Donna back her memories, which means she's going to die, and she obviously accepts it. And but the Doctor makes this impassioned plea of why, which again was very reminiscent of his "I could have done so much more" speech with Wilf. And I'm like, is this the 10th Doctor or is this the 14th Doctor? Which,
well, I suppose we believe that it's the 14th, but maybe it's not. Maybe this is a thing. Maybe this is a thing that's coming that we don't know. I hadn't really thought of that until just now. Maybe there is more of a twist to come than we know of. Yeah, probably not, but you never know.
You never know. I don't know. What was your vibe with that?
So
moment?
my first thought was that ship was like the living embodiment of Mr. Freeze's rocket from Batman and Robin when he freezes George Clooney's hands to the wall and then they have
my gosh,
off the doors to get back down to land. I mean, it was a similar shaped rocket anyway, but the interior just looked so similar. I was like, Batman and Robin moment.
Now you mentioned that, yes. Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's just something about that interior was really similar to it.
Yes.
I was really impressed by how David Tennant performed that scene. I thought that was a really great... I mean, we're so used to him being the funny, skinny man running around just completely zany. So I think it's really nice when he gets to have a moment like that. And it was similar to the moment earlier when he talked about Wilf and he thought Wilf was dead. I thought he played both of those emotional beats really, really well.
Yes.
I hadn't anticipated that when she would get her memories back, she would be Dr. Donna rather than just Donna. I thought she would just remember everything. I didn't realize she would remember everything and
Yes.
instantly be a Time Lord again. So that was fun.
Yes, and I guess that was interesting. That was interesting. I think I don't know. I like the moment in general. I sort of like the moment. There's definitely a few highlights for me. I'll spit them off before we kind of head towards the conclusion of the episode. But the initial moment with the Doctor and Donna's husband in the cab, and they're talking about nearest whatever that mutual friend is, and the Doctor's like, it's a comedy beat where he's like, how's she doing? Oh, the accident. He's like, oh well, obviously she's not great because the accident, but well, yeah, well, it wasn't her fault. Yes, and she paid the fine. That was a fun moment. I did enjoy the Wilf bit, and it made me think, oh, I really want to see Wilf. God damn it. Again, it's one of those moments where, like, I can't believe we waited so long. Like, Wilf is someone I would have loved to have seen Capaldi with.
Yeah.
For a scene. Like, that just would have been wonderful because he would have known. Wilf would have known this is the Doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he would. He would.
So it pisses me off that we didn't get that, in the same way that it pisses me off that we've never had Susan. We've never had Susan come back, and I do not for the life of me understand why. When where and how the Doctor left his first companion, his granddaughter, it's screaming to be picked back up.
Yeah.
And they just don't. So it drives me nuts. Anyway, so there was a couple of moments that I liked in the episode. I think the Shadow Proclamation moment where he's kind of doing the judgment thing, like that was very fun. That was very kind of Russell T Davies-y classic Doctor Who. That
and a good nod to Sylvester McCoy. Was it Sylvester McCoy that always used to pull stuff out of his pocket?
Yes.
Completely random stuff that would just be living in like the infinite pocket. So like when he pulled the wig out, I was like, I get that. Yes. I see where you're going.
Yeah. So that bit was fun, and there was some nice moments between Tennant and Tate when they're locked in the spaceship, and he does bring her back, and he's feeling that that there were some good emotional beats with him as well. But again, this is where some of my problems also kind of come off the back of this. It's like, well, you have these really great emotional moments, and this episode really just needed to be about the Doctor and Donna, and you've put too many other characters in here that don't really add anything. And they're just sort of not even half baked. They're still like, it's like if it's a cake, it's still like goopy in a bowl and whatnot. It's like you really needed more time with these people. Maybe hold off on them. Or if they're not important, do not have them in this. Just don't. There's no need. So Donna comes back, and she's the Dr. Donna. We think she's going to die, and she doesn't die. And the excuse for this is that the meta crisis split into two between her and her daughter Rose. I guess it's an okay explanation. It's fine enough. I do have to criticize the sort of way in which they spoke to the Doctor during that period, during that moment. It was I really felt like I to the screen, I was just like, fuck you. Fuck. Like, you're trying to be preachy. You're trying to make a point. And for those who don't know, it's this moment where basically the Donna and Rose are holding hands and like, oh, the Doctor's like, oh, I need to think about a way to kind of get the meta crisis out of your brains and saving and they're like, oh no, we know how to do it. We know exactly what to do. And what's the line that they say? Rose tells him that, they're like, you'll never understand it because you're a male
representing doctor.
A male representing doctor, so you'll never understand it. I'm like, what? So he would have understood it if he was still Jodie Whittaker, but now because he's a male representing doctor, he can't understand something. And what really irks me about this stuff, and this comes from the writer in me, is there's nothing more annoying than when someone tries to tell you don't understand how to be empathetic. You don't understand how to speak to people and get inside their heads and understand their dilemmas. You might not necessarily fully understand it in the sense that you might not have experienced the kind of things they've experienced, but you will know how to understand certain bits of emotion and certain things. So for them, it just felt really annoyingly, unnecessarily preachy for me. And it always irked the bejesus out of me when Clara spoke down to Peter Capaldi's doctor. She did that a lot. She did it a lot, and that never sat well with me either. And I'm like, the doctor is this ageless being. There's this hilarious line in the Invasion of the Zygons where the doctor's like, "I'm old enough to be your messiah," which is just hilarious to me. But it's like, yeah, it's like this guy, the doctor's been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. He has seen so much more shit than you, Donna, and you, Rose, will ever understand with your tiny, tiny, tiny human brains. Like, you cannot understand what you're telling me the doctor who wiped out his entire race in order to save the galaxy. You're telling me he doesn't understand because he's not a woman right now? Like, seriously? He doesn't know how to get rid of the meta-crisis stuff because he's a man? Like, it just didn't feel right to me. It felt unnecessary, like I said, unnecessarily preachy. That line felt like a dig. And I'm like, I don't know why you need to do this.
It was the clunkiest part of the episode for me.
Yeah.
I liked and I can't remember the exact way that it was said dialogue-wise, but the binary, non-binary bit, I thought was a nice line.
Slightly confusing because we don't know that she's non-binary.
Yeah.
She's not like you need to pick your lane. You didn't develop the character enough to let us know.
Yeah. I could just hear Twitter going which made me like it more.
Yes. Yeah.
But then
okay, let me ask you about. But then we'll go. Is yes, Twitter will scream about that. But is that worth it?
Oh no, it's just funny to know that in somewhere they probably were writing that episode and thinking, well, we're going to do this. We've got a trans character, we've got a disabled character. We're going to, part of this episode is going to be very much about identity. There are going to be people who are going to be pissed off at this, who are already pissed off about the fact that we had a female doctor for the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
What can we say that could annoy them even more? And so, it's not necessary, but at the same time, I just thought it was funny that they put that in there because you just know what the reaction is going to be from a certain sector of the.
You do, and I think my problem with it is I don't really like the idea of inserting something into an episode with the intention of intentionally pissing people off. I'm 100% all for challenging people.
Yeah,
absolutely. Any episode of Star Trek Next Generation challenges both left and right all the time. Like when Worf will not give up his blood to save the Romulan who's dying, and Beverly's like, "You do it." He's like, "No," and he doesn't. Like if they're writing that now, there would be a big gushy, mushy moment. He would finally do it. But it's like I want to be challenged with my stories. Challenge people, but don't. This smart stories will challenge you, but they won't be a dick.
Yeah,
in my opinion. So that I think was why I thought, okay, let's again. Star Trek Picard Series 3 was wonderful in bringing both sides back together, and everyone loved it, but a lot of people on both sides did love Star Trek Picard Series 3, and that was great because it wasn't intentionally trying to talk down to one side or the other. It was like, no, we can do this together. And so comments like that and doing things like that, I'm like, I get it. You probably think you're being fun and quirky and controversial, and you're going to get a rise on social media. But in the grand scheme of things, are you doing more harm than good? Are you making that void even more vast?
Yeah.
I don't know. I interrupted you. Carry on. Sorry.
No. It's a perfect point because all that now does is like right now I can see my phone flashing in front of me where I said that I thought there were some beautiful moments in the episode, and people are like, "Oh, fuck off! It's just woke shit." And I've got DMs from people saying about the binary moment, saying like, "Oh, do you not think that was completely stupid?" I'm like, Don't ask me. I didn't
Yeah.
write it. Literally, I just tweeted along. All right, I have an opinion. But to your point about that like you won't understand because you're a male presenting doctor was the clunkiest thing in the whole episode for me.
Yeah.
Because it felt like what they thought they were doing was just making a really generic kind of like, oh, women know better than men joke.
Kind of.
Which in a context where it's well written is fine because Donna is a funny character. She is inherently a funny character.
Yes.
She's always
true.
They've always had a relationship between her and the Doctor where she could mock him in that kind of way, where she'd be like, "I'm a woman and I better than you."
Yes.
And so I feel like there's almost a precedent that you could make a good joke there, but that was not well written. Yes. And so it came off like they were just being condescending, which seemed completely unfair in the moment.
Just a couple of comments in the chat that we'll look at briefly. D. Evans says that if Rose was a child that was unsure in their identity and now is freely understanding why at some point, that would have been a much better way to see this. I don't disagree.
Yeah, because she has that moment when they've really easily just let the whole meta crisis go, which is far too easy to resolve. Far too easy to resolve.
Yeah, a little bit.
When she then says, "I finally now know who I am, and I am now just me," I was like, "That's a wonderful moment in your overall journey that we haven't seen any of whatsoever."
Exactly, right? Yeah.
So, like, that could have been, if she had been a longer serving character or a character for whom we'd seen more of that journey, that would have been a wonderful moment to have closed off that character's arc. But it was not earned yet.
I totally agree. Robbo Brando, hello, Robbo, good to see you, buddy. Says, I think the idea was that she, as in Rose, discovers herself as non-binary in that moment. It's a big deal, big dramatic coming out movie.
Wow, yeah,
maybe, possibly, but it's so quick and so jarring that from a writing standpoint, it's like, wait a minute, what if you're just trying to resolve a really big character moment? You have rushed it way too much, which, and this is what I was saying earlier, and what you were saying, Neil, is this feels like it. You were expecting 90-minute episodes. Yeah. I was too, and this looks and feels like there could have been more could have been happening.
I don't know if Yasmin Finney is in either of the other two episodes in this little trilogy. I don't know. I don't know if she's only in this one, or I don't know. I presume at some point Donna will go back to her family, so I guess we will see them again. But I don't know that they are a huge factor in either of the next two episodes.
Which again brings me back to my point that I made at the very, very beginning of this episode: is why? Why are they here? If they didn't have any bearing on the plot, because I did sort of roll my eyes when suddenly Rose is tweaking when doing things, and they they use the meta crisis stuff to explain it, which is fine. But it's like, imagine if we were going through this whole episode and Rose was strangely smart about things. She's not just in a goddamn shed making little stuffed animals like some Sado would do. Like, what if she's like genuinely intelligent? What if she's going to maybe she's already in university? You know what I mean? What if she's
ahead of her class? She's some kind of child prodigy, and no one quite knows why. Donna's confused because she's like, well, he's a cab driver, and I'm a temp from Chiswick. So
I'm a temp from Chiswick. Yeah.
Where did this come from? Yeah.
Yes.
So is there a deleted scene somewhere, or deleted scenes where she exhibited some of that, or even in that moment where she suddenly is at the console and she knows what she's doing? I mean, the last time we saw her, she was behind a door that Donna had locked from the other side to keep her safe.
So how does she get in?
Is there a moment where she has a bit of an awakening, like Donna did? I mean, at the same time as what happened to Donna, is there a scene where her dad and Sylvia see Rose have that moment where the regeneration energy comes out to set that precedent? So I wonder what is on the cutting room floor from this episode that might have helped add some context to some of these moments.
It desperately needed it. It desperately needed it because, like I said, Russell T Davies has always been progressive with his writing. He's always included so many cool things. and he's always been very inclusive with the type of characters that he brings in. So love, it's great that he's continuing to do that, but I just don't underserve these characters. If you're going to do it, make it important. Either make it important or don't make it a big deal.
Yeah.
I.e., don't mention the stairs. Just accept who's in the room, and that's accepting who is in the room without making a big deal is huge in and of itself. Like, so we didn't need the boys on the bike. We just didn't need it.
I suppose Russell T Davies always did have a very, very busy era, because when you think, I mean, Jackie and Mickey obviously ended up very heavily involved in the story, so maybe they're not the best example. But when you think about Martha, she had mum, she had dad, she had dad's girlfriend, she had a brother, she had a sister. That was that. Yeah, I mean, there was like 6 people in that family who never really did anything other than turn up when the plot needed them to.
Yeah.
Donna Wilf obviously became a much more important character than I think anyone anticipated. Sylvia less so, but then Sylvia had the friends that she would go out for drinks with, who then all turned into adipose. Or I think Russell T Davies, if you kind of look at his era of Doctor Who the first time around, there was a lot of unnecessary characters who were there filling up space.
Yes, it's true. It's just that. Well, I 100% agree. They would come in and fill up a little bit of space throughout a season. They didn't necessarily suck up a bunch of space in a short episode.
Yeah.
You know. And so I think it was a little bit more balanced back in his early days. This one just felt like, it almost felt like this is like you're putting on the uniform after a very long time. You're getting back to the game that you haven't played, and so you're a little bit rusty. It's a little bit, you need to work out. You need to stretch a little bit more, to use some sports analogies.
And exciting, and you've only got 3 episodes that you're going to do this thing with, and so
Yeah. So I think there might be could be a little bit of that going on. And again, we also do not know how much interference is coming in from both the BBC and Mother Bloody Disney.
So I don't think they get on board until they've starting production on Ncuti season. I think at very, very least
Disney's name was stamped on the end of this episode.
So they must have got their name on there. I don't think they were in on it as it was in production.
Okay. That's interesting.
I think the Disney deal was done as these were in post-production. So obviously they could still have had notes on edits. But I don't think they were in on it on ground level as it was being kind of written and produced.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Ncuti stuff.
I think the beginning of Ncuti era that's when we will find out if there's been a huge tonal shift or any kind of major changes because of that involvement.
Yeah. So Robbo Brando says Rose could have paralleled Susan as a child prodigy. Is what you're saying, Luke? Why not? That would have been cool. That'd have been really cool. I mean, I love Susan. I wish she would. Anyway.
And what happened to the Doctor? I mean, I know the Doctor's daughter ended up marrying the Doctor in real life.
Yeah.
He never found out that she was still alive. She went off traveling and was never heard of again.
Yes. So the end of the episode, the Doctor and Donna say, "Let's go off on a little adventure to go see Wilf." And they're all waving goodbye. They enter the TARDIS, and the TARDIS has had a quite extreme upgrade.
Loved it.
Did you?
Maybe didn't.
It's
very, very clean.
It's very clean. I mean, I'll be clear. The white walls, the circles, like that's very classic. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like I like that stuff. That's fine. The room being as big as say again.
Is it the coffee machine?
It is the coffee machine. It's a gadget too far. No, the room being as big as Cerebro, was a little bit nuts to me.
But then I suppose they've just taken the "it's bigger on the inside" joke to the extreme, and I was like, so this is what happens when you build your own studio, because obviously there's now films at Wolf. This is now not a BBC production anymore. It's now Wolf Productions, it is Bad Wolf, it is the
Yes.
original team, and they have
Yes.
built their own purpose-made sound stages in Cardiff. It's like, wow, this is when you are allowed to assign your own stage space, this is what happens.
Yeah.
You end up with Cerebro,
yeah, console room. Because I look back at various TARDIS rooms in the past, and I the gag of it being bigger on the inside is always fun, and it does the room. I guess the room didn't need to be like comedically big. This felt like you walked into the TARDIS and you've stepped into, like, again, Star Trek. It was very Star Trek 2009. It was very like bright white, and you've walked into an Apple store, sort of thing. And
I do. Wait, okay, sorry to interrupt.
no.
Do you think that was an ad lib of him being so excited running around it?
I would have to know if that was literally their first time seeing the TARDIS. Although I could still see him ad libbing that as well. I could still see that.
There was just so much, like, he just felt so joyous.
He did.
I could feel how excited he was running around it. That
Yes.
I could not help but smile at him doing that, because I thought I would do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like Catherine
Go on.
Tate / Donna, be she in character or not, the way there's quite a maternal reaction.
Yes.
In the way that she kind of is just sort of smiling and laughing, and like, oh my God, like, what is he doing? And I don't know, something about it just feels really wholesome, and like that was Catherine and David and not necessarily Doctor and Donna.
Yeah, possibly. Robbo in the chat says he liked the TARDIS set a lot, but it might be because he hated the Jodie Whittaker because of all the growing minerals design.
Yeah,
Jodie's TARDIS is dog shit. Dog shit. It's offensively bad. It just not what it's just so bad. But then again, her sonic screwdriver looked like a thing that some individuals use. But when I look back at some of the other sets, I really liked the latter Peter Capaldi set of his time. I also liked the very first Matt Smith set. I love Tennant's original set. Those all felt big to me. They all felt big and weird and strange. This being so absurdly clean.
They all had a very similar kind of platform around the console with the space underneath, which this still had. But then you had enough dead space between that and the wall that it still felt like it was somewhat cavernous around that. Whereas this is more based on those catwalks that are kind of meandering around that made it feel quite different. I was just going to say, just about Jodie Whittaker, I feel awful because, like you, I can barely watch any of that era, which makes me feel terrible because I actually really like her and her characterization and how she plays it. I just really don't like. There are very, very few bits of writing in that season that I liked. There's one or two bits from what I've seen that were okay. Yeah. But on the whole, I feel like everything let her down.
Oh, Chibnall, I again, my complaints are twofold. Chibnall gets 98% of the blame.
Yes.
For his I never liked his episodes earlier on when he wrote for Moffat. I think he wrote an episode for Russell as well. I can't remember. I did not enjoy his literally when I was like, wait, this guy, oh my God, these episodes are my least favorite. How did this guy get the job? In the same way, how did he get all of his hair back? There was one issue that I had with Jodie, and that was she was on David Tennant's podcast, and she made the comment that she intentionally didn't look at any of the other doctors going into it.
Okay.
And that definitely sort of didn't sit right with me, mainly because of I get it if you're playing Superman and you're not going to look at old Superman performances because you are your Superman.
Yes.
The problem is the Doctor is the same person. So you take and you merge things. And she just felt like a riff of Matt Smith and David Tennant. And I never felt that she came into her own as the Doctor. And a mix of that is writing, but I think a mix of that is also intentionally not looking at what these other actors were doing with the role to sort of get how they were all building off each other and stuff. And maybe later on she did, I don't know, but at least in that podcast she said she didn't. So I'm like, that's disappointing to me.
Yeah.
And in the end of the episode, Donna spills her coffee as she foreshadowed, and the TARDIS wibbles and wobbles and sort of vanishes in a way we've never seen the TARDIS come and go.
Yeah.
Made it feel like a bit of a has it dropped, has it kind of ripped through maybe time and space, and what universe has it landed in is the question that I have.
Hence why the next special is called Wild Blue Yonder.
Okay, there you go. And that is that the one with the toy man guy?
That's the third one.
Oh, is that the third one? Okay.
Yeah. So the synopsis for the next one is: the TARDIS takes the Doctor and Donna to the furthest edge of adventure. To escape, they must face the most desperate fight of their lives, with the fate of the universe at stake.
So again, we've had all of London is at stake. Now the fate of the universe is at stake. What?
Right, okay. So just to fill in those who are watching, before we went on air, I was looking at the cast list for Star Beast, and it included some people who were definitely not in the episode, like Bonnie Langford, who we know is going to be in the Ncuti Gatwa series, and mentioning Kate Stewart, so Gemma Redgrave. So the cast list on IMDb for Wild Blue Yonder is very similar. It's got David Tennant, it's got Yasmin Finney, Jacqueline King, Bonnie Langford is there again, Miriam Margolyes is there again as Meep. Interestingly, on the cast list for this one, and I do not think this is in any way accurate, but just because my eyebrows disappeared off my forehead, John Sim, the Master, is listed as in the cast for Wild Blue Yonder.
I wonder if there's going to be flashes or memories or things like that. Yeah.
So directed by Tom Kingsley, written again by Russell T Davies. This next one.
Okay, interesting. I'm keen to see where it goes. I'm keen to see where this goes. Robbo says, I wonder what the need is for all the room in the TARDIS, unless Russell is planning on doing episodes entirely set within it. Big set can mean big cast, but it's just going to be Ncuti and Millie. True, and again, it's kind of like
actually, here's a good question. Then, do we think this is also Ncuti's? Or is this a stopgap?
I wonder the same. It's such a clean slate, isn't it? That it could easily just be we have a clean slate in a sense with David Tennant coming back, a clean slate with the TARDIS being the way it is. So it would be interesting to see if he does use the same set, and if he's just burning through that Disney money.
Yeah. There is now a trailer for Wild Blue Yonder as well, which was not, I don't think, shown.
There wasn't one. It drove me nuts because I wanted to see it before we did this, but never mind.
Yeah, it is out now. It's sort of playing in the corner. So if you just watch my eyebrows, I'm really interested to see where it goes, because obviously something that you and I know, there's nothing in that trailer that gives anything away.
Okay.
You and I have talked just in the week about things, and I had said to you about how I thought this would be a serialized arc, which. Same. It doesn't.
There's a hint of some serial, though.
Yes. So there we were thinking this wasn't serialized, and actually there is just that reference to the boss, which I presume is going to be Neil Patrick Harris's character.
Probably.
Unless I don't know where Jinx Monsoon factors in, because I thought she was in the specials, but maybe she's not. Maybe she's in Ncuti's series. Because there's been so many different random pieces of casting, and like first looks at characters, that I now don't know what's going to be Ncuti era and what's anniversary special era.
Yes, exactly. It's very murky. It's very confused a little bit. So just one last comment from Robbo. He says Jodie's Doctor lacked any sense of the darkness that the character was characterized the Russell T Davies era through Moffat's. In my opinion, I totally agree.
Yeah,
she came across too happy and innocent. I couldn't see her having fought in a war. I don't even know if she knew that there was a time war.
Yeah, because by the time you get to Capaldi, things are pretty heavy and pretty dark.
Yes.
And that did kind of disappear. So just for anybody that was confused by my comment, Jinx Monsoon isn't in it until season 14.
Okay.
Season 14. So not part of the special. So that makes sense.
Yes. So So we don't know what's coming up. I'm interested to see what's going on, but there is still this wider question that we'll be asking ourselves over the next three weeks or so, and I hopefully will have some better answer by the end of the third special. And that is where are we going? You know, there's that wonderful question that Matt Smith asks. You know, where are we going? And it's where am I going? And it's home the long way around. So where are we going next? It's fascinating to me that on the BBC website, and I don't know if this is going to be the same on Disney Plus whenever Doctor Who lands there.
It's already on, I believe. I think this episode is now there.
Is all Doctor Who on BBC?
All Doctor Who is now available on iPlayer right to the very beginning.
Yes,
I think all of it. I don't know if all of it is coming to Disney Plus or not.
That's
or
what I'm
it's
sure.
Just new. Yeah.
So for those, because if you're listening in the States or other parts of the world, on BBC iPlayer, they have all of the Doctor Who stuff on there. They have it's an interestingly unique division between stuff. So they have the classic era, which is William Hartnell all the way through to Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy's era, right? So the 60s through the 70s. Then they have a timestamp on that, as if it's kind of like, you know, on a gravestone. And then you have the New Who era, which has 2005 to 2022, which interests me quite a bit because it doesn't seem to include where we're going next. And we know that Russell T Davies has now mentioned, even though I mentioned it way before he did, that that what's happening now is a soft reboot. He's now confirmed that Who is a soft reboot, and that the first season with Ncuti is now going to be season 1, a new season 1 instead of series 14 or 15 or something like that.
Yeah.
Though Wikipedia currently has it down as series 14 and 15.
Yeah.
And so it really does make me wonder, you know, what is going on, because you heard a rumor, or you heard a spoiler that could be or couldn't be true. Do we share that, or do we not share that?
Interestingly, I'm just rereading it at the same time just to see if there's any more context around it. Yes, I wish I had enough context to understand how this could possibly happen. So we're going to go there, aren't we? We're going to go there.
We might as well. It's the first episode. We gotta lay our cards on the table.
So there is a theory that this third special will feature 2 Doctors, which is a precedent for Doctor Who in an anniversary year.
Yes.
And that those 2 Doctors will be Ncuti and David Tennant. So we will see both of them, and that by the end of it, both will still exist. Although that then means there's 3 versions of David Tennant technically in existence. There's 10, who could still be around having adventures we've never seen. 10's clone living his life with Rose, and 14
10.5.
10.5. Yeah. There is not really any kind of context around how it happens, but the last of the specials is very much about embracing change. Villains' regeneration meddling starts to unravel, causing the Doctor to glitch between who they were and who they should be. A conflict that'll kill them if not resolved. The Doctor is given a choice: stay as they are, trapped forever in the past, or embrace change and become... Okay, so this theory is that the Doctor has been forced into this, not by choice, but actually through the meddling of Neil Patrick Harris's kind of toy maker, puppet master, which is something that we very much see in the trailer. And that actually he's manipulated the Doctor into this scenario that he is now in, and the choice will be stay as you are or move on and embrace who you want to become, which I guess sticks with this idea of identity that we've just seen established in this one. And that to accept change will see him regenerate by choice into Ncuti.
Yeah. I mean, that could work, because I guess that was the...
Apologies, spoilers, potentially.
Potential spoilers, we don't know. This is all hypothetical. We internet hearsay.
The interneting.
You know, because who knows what could happen? Because I guess that's the thing. Because wasn't one part of the rumor that like Tennant goes off, this version of Tennant goes off and lives his life?
Yeah, there is something in this. It's all. I'm afraid my source here is Reddit.
Yes.
There is something in there about they're ending up being the two of them, and that they are separated, and he gets to just go off and live his life.
Which is interesting, because this is where I'm curious, because I'm like, where are we going with this? Is this, there has been talk in the past about multiverse stuff with Doctor Who and that kind of stuff, and the whole kind of going to a series one situation, the whole idea of if it is something that the 14th Doctor or 10.5 does go off to live his own life, it's like, well, where does Shooty fit into this? If he doesn't regenerate into Shooty, or if there's some sort of like molecular split, and they become two different people, is odd and weird, and I don't really think is interesting. Or are we bouncing between universes? And could Shooty be a new number one?
And they have now inserted him into the other anniversary special, so he gets to share a scene with Hartnell, which he talks about. And there is a version of, I've forgotten what it's called now.
Adventures in Time and Space, or whatever.
Yeah, so he has now been inserted into Adventures in Time and Space.
Yeah. So again, having seen that, and then here you've said, I'm less inclined to think that we're going to get a multiverse situation where we're going to start following the new adventures of the Doctor from another universe. Though I think that would have been maybe one of the smartest things they could have done. While I think multiverse is already tired and boring, I am to a point with Doctor Who that was exasperated with the Chibnall era of retcon after retcon after retcon after, we need to somehow work around this problem of the regeneration. I always said that Capaldi really should have been the final Doctor. The War Doctor was stupid. Is a stupid idea. I love Moffat mostly, but the War Doctor to me was a dumb idea and a waste of a regeneration. It just should have been Paul McGann. That just should have been Paul McGann. Matt Smith, his Doctor ends up getting a whole new cycle of regenerations, which means he's got a whole new 12 or what is it, 13 lives that he can live through, and Capaldi is number one of those lives. But are we now burning through another one with David Tennant, or because he didn't really properly regenerate, he sort of burned into from Jodie Whittaker or fizzled into each other. Wasn't a typical regeneration that we're used to seeing. Is this really regeneration, or are we now going to introduce the idea that the Doctor can swap faces when he wants to, without regenerating?
Yeah. If the theory is going to tie back to this villain forcing this to happen, then I guess that's their route.
Yeah. So it's interesting, but I really would have preferred Peter to be the last one. Literally have the timestamp of 2005 to I guess 2017 or whenever he finished. Let that literally be the end. Bring Doctor Who to a complete close. Let it rest for 4 or 5 years, then reboot it without the necessary baggage of the legacy. Why not? You can have a new number one. It can be a guy, it can be a gal, it can be whatever the hell you want. You don't have to worry about any of the baggage, any of the history. You have the sort of, you have the ideas of what was going on, the ideas of Gallifrey, all that kind of, you can play with all that kind of stuff, but you don't have to adhere to necessarily the canon of it all. I also thought you could have brought Susan back as a wonderful bookend, but that's the other thing, is you also could have brought Susan back. The Doctor could die and she could take the mantle of the Doctor. I know that, and people would be really pissed off at that idea, because they'd be like, why does a woman have to take over the Doctor? But I would have bought it being Susan. I would have bought Susan carrying on that mantle. If they brought her back for a whole season, we reintroduced her, we really get her, and she, that torch is then passed on to her. I think that would be great. I would have bought that, far more than Rey calling herself a Skywalker at the end of Rise of Skywalker. Like that would work for me. But yeah, I don't know. I guess if there's one of the Sylvester McCoy's companions is going to be in Shooty's season, that also lends itself to the idea that no, we're not really going to be multiversing it. We're going in a,
Continuing.
he is the next in the number.
Yeah.
It's just going to be odd. I'm just curious to see if what is real and not real of that rumor of
Yeah.
David Tennant's going off and living his life, or is that a red herring?
Yeah, it could easily be.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here? I don't know. So yeah, next week, next Saturday is the same time. I can't remember when the next episode is.
Yeah, it is next week, same time, same place.
I'm trying to decide if I do, if I or we, if we come back every week, or if we do both episodes in one go, or just kind of skip the middle one. If we do 2 in one go, we're gonna be here for like 4 hours.
Which is quite dangerous when you think it was only on for 58 minutes. We've now managed to go nearly twice the length of the episode.
Exactly. But this is because we're breaking it down. We're going scene by scene.
We're deep
we're deep diving here. It makes sense. Yeah. So I will see. We'll discuss it. I'm not opposed to doing one every week, just to kind of get into all 3 of them. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, I guess until next time. Neil, do you have anything you want to plug?
Do I have anything I want to plug? Just the usual. So fortnightly podcasts. I'm now actually recording video when making podcasts. So podcasts are now on YouTube as well as all your usual platforms. So you can watch me fumble my way through a podcast now rather than just listening to it.
Awesome.
But yeah, all the usual stuff. We are just at the end of what has been a really, really busy period through Halloween. So if you're looking for some good horror, I have plenty of fresh horror reviews out there for people to check out.
Awesome. There you go. Go follow Neil. Follow Get Your Comic Con. Go follow all the podcasts. Just go do it now. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Neil. I love breaking Doctor Who and all sorts of stuff down with you. And I look forward to doing it again.
So we go next. It's going to be an interesting roller coaster for the next 3 weeks.
It is. I guess. Oh, you know what? Shit.
What have you forgotten?
Do we talk about the Davros problem briefly?
Ooh. I mean, do we? It's a children in need scene. Does it even need to be considered canon? I mean, I guess because of Russell T Davis's comments, it is. But
yeah,
it's just interesting how one scene can cause so much conversation.
Yeah, it was confused. I mean, I watched the scene. I loved the little sketch.
Yeah.
And then when I read that it was meant to be a retcon of Davros, and that's the genesis of the Daleks, and that we're never going to see him in his. There was a weird sort of like altruistic vibe to Russell's excuse as to why they've done it. Yeah. And I'm like he's like part whatever Davros. He's not a human, but he's part whatever the top half is, and he's part Dalek. Like he's not a disabled individual.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you're getting at, Mr. Davies. You're welcome to come on the podcast and we can discuss it. I would love to do that if you ever watch this.
It was obviously from that interview. It was really coming from a place of, all those conversations about why is it always that the Bond villain has a scar or is in a wheelchair. And
yeah.
I get it, but yeah, it's just odd because I don't think that is the perception that anyone had of that character.
I don't think so at all. I that to me felt, like I said, it felt a little kind of a bit like some of this stuff in this episode, like unnecessarily preachy. I'm like, it sounds like you need to feel like you are a really, really good person, and that's why you're doing this. And you don't need to do that because you've done plenty of great episodes that have been thoughtful and encouraging and challenging. I don't think this is the hill. Davros is not the hill to die on. This is not the thing to push, I think. Robbo says the only thing I hated about the Davros scene was the horrible comedic music. I don't remember the music. But yeah, I mean, in general, the sketch I really did enjoy. It was a funny little sketch, and I was, I love the fact that the doctor took that big giant, claw off and put the sucker, put the plunger back on. That was great. Like, yeah, I was all for that. Like, that was great. That was fun stuff. Yeah, I dug that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's really it. It felt a little weird and unnecessary.
I was just reading about Russell T Davies because
Mm.
I knew that his partner had passed away. It was cancer. I was trying
Oh,
to.
jeez.
I know there's a few things that he has obviously been through in his life that have really heavily influenced a lot of his writing.
Yeah.
And obviously, you go back to Queer as Folk. It was all about kind of his lived experience of being a gay man in the 80s and 90s and things
Yeah.
like that. And then you look at Years and Years, and that was obviously more of a look at things that could have happened in the future,
Yeah.
perspective. But yeah, I think he is somebody who is always maybe seen the criticism and the nastiness that is so easily found these days, and has really felt like being the loudest voice in the room to oppose that.
Mm.
And maybe we're at a period now where you don't need to be as loud because there are a lot
Maybe.
more of those voices than there ever were.
Maybe. That's
Because
a good point.
when you think back to kind of Queer as Folk, that was before they took it to America and tried to remake it. That was a huge watershed moment
Yes.
in TV, and he was put on such a pedestal for being brave enough to tell that story and have that voice, for not just telling a story about three gay men in Manchester in the 90s, but that tackled things like AIDS and other darker sides of things that were going on other than just relationships. And
Yeah.
so I think he maybe at this point in his career probably feels a lot of pressure to be someone that breaks down a lot of that. And so I wonder how much of that is feeling a responsibility to voices that are not always given kind of the amplification that they deserve.
Yeah, that's quite possible. It's quite possible.
Yeah.
I've never thought about that, but yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, I think we've covered as much as we can cover today without seeing the next episode. So, this was a lot of fun, Neil. I can't wait to do it again, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And we'll see you. If not next week, definitely, probably more than likely for the final episode of this trilogy, because we'll definitely, I'm gonna have to talk about that one at least.
Oh, yeah. I think
I'd like to do all three, but
yeah, I hope there's going to be a lot in that episode. I look forward to it.
Yeah, I do too. So, everyone, we will see you next.